Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already. But before we dive into the meets and greets, we got the Entertainah Chris on the line today. Awesome. I love to have Chris on the channel. This guy is full of awesome information and just the energy he brings to this team. And I'm sure a lot of you guys also watch his YouTube channel. If you don't, go check it out. You're going to be instantly hooked because I am and have been for a while now. So this guy gets out content faster than anyone I've ever seen on the video platform. So Chris, how you doing today, my man?
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. Always love talking to you guys. Looking forward to doing it more in the future. And, yeah, man, ready to talk some Giants football. We got I don't want to label it a must-win game just because I'm trying to go into the year with moderate expectations, and I'm not expecting playoffs. But when you look at all the factors, it's very hard to look at this game right now and feel like we shouldn't win this game right now.
Absolutely. I mean, this team that we're watching right now is still in a rebuild mode. There's things that are going to be developing on a weekly basis. Like Joe Judge said, he expects to see this team develop a lot from week 1 to week 2. And we saw some good progress in specific units, but we also saw a lot of regression from players. Before we dive into all that, Anthony, I just want to see how you're doing and, what your expectations are for this week before we dive into the injuries and the whole mess on the 49ers side of things.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing well. I'm definitely excited for this game, and I am going to go as far as to say it is a must-win game. I think that when you look at all of the injuries that the 49ers have, and you look at how slow of a start the Giants have had to the season, going 0-2, and you already have a ton of the fan base crying out for the tank for Trevor Lawrence, I think in order to put all that to rest, the Giants just have to win. You've got to beat a winnable game or, a lesser opponent with all these injuries that the 49ers have. It's a must-win. I think that can really turn around the season.
Absolutely. And, the 49ers aren't just an easy team to beat. They are a very strong team with a lot of great depth players. And just to start off this episode and kind of get things rolling, I want to list off all the injuries that they're dealing with right now. And that's going to be a seriously big challenge for them. Hold on. My fucking phone is ringing. Hold on a second. Let me just turn it off.
I have a little editing to do.
Yeah, that's all right. That happens to me during all my live streams
every
too.
Fucking time, I want to smash the shit out of this phone right now. Every fucking
home phone? I didn't even know home phones existed anymore.
Dude, it's my mom's home phone. I don't even know why that shit rings. Who the fuck calls on a home phone anymore? Like, unbelievable. I'll just pick up right where I left off. So the 49ers are a great team, and overcoming this team is never going to be an easy challenge for the Giants, even though they're missing a ton of players. And to list off some of the guys they're missing, Jimmy Garoppolo, Solomon Thomas, Nick Bosa, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Richard Sherman, Dee Ford. We're talking about their starting quarterback, their starting running backs, and George Kittle was just ruled out as well. So starting quarterback, starting running backs, their best players on the defensive line, their best edge rushers. Nick Bosa is like one of the best in the league. So they're shredded on the defensive line, and when you're missing your starting quarterback, you're already down a significant piece in your team. Now, Chris, do you see this as also a must-win game for the Giants? And how do you think they attack this thinned out 49er squad?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is a must-win game. It's definitely a game where we better at least compete. If we get blown out in this game, that's embarrassing. And you know what? And Daniel Jones has to play well in this game. How I'm going to attack this team? Listen, I think it's the same game plan every week on offense. I do. I think you have to try to establish that run, and there's no excuses for the offensive line not to be able to get some kind of push this week with the banged-up defensive line from the San Francisco 49ers. The other thing I want to see the Giants try to do, which we haven't been able to do the first 2 weeks, and part of it I think is play calling, and part of it is the fact that I think we went up against 2 great pass rushes, and the Giants probably had the mentality coming out, we're not going to be able to sustain blocks, so we won't be able to take shots down the field because it takes time to develop. But this week, now that their pass rushers are out, you got Sherman out. I want to see the Giants take shots down the field. They haven't done that a lot this year. Really, maybe 2 balls, and one of them was the touchdown to Slayton over 20 or 25 yards. So I want to see the Giants try to stretch that defense, try to develop the run. I think they're going to come out with a running back by committee approach with the acquisition of Freeman. I think you'll see an even distribution between the 3 running backs. And Jones, obviously, I've seen a lot of good things, but he's definitely got to work on the turnovers. He can't turn the football over in his own end zone, near his own end zone like he did last week. That definitely was a major reason why we lost that football game. He's got to come out. He's got to hold on to the ball.
Yep. No, you're spot on. And I think a few points that I definitely agree with you. Establishing the run, I think, is a necessity because, like you said, they're going to kind of take this running game with a 3-headed monster approach. Remember Earth, Wind, and Fire. We'll see if they can kind of reenact that to some degree. Highly unlikely. But Devonta Freeman I think will probably get somewhere in the 25% of the snaps range. Look, he's coming in. He has less than a week to learn the playbook, which is not ideal for him. This is probably the best case scenario for the Giants since the 49ers are so injured. This will give Devonta Freeman a chance to get his feet wet. He'll get some good reps, and then they'll build off of that into week 4. But I don't expect him to be a primary guy in this game plan this week. I think Wayne Gallman will probably be the main dude. And then you have Dion Lewis, who's obviously your receiving back. He only had 20 yards on 10 carries last week, so he was not effective. And the Giants just really need to be stronger up in the trenches of their offensive line in run blocking. Run blocking has been their biggest weakness. Before Saquon went down, he was averaging 7 yards per carry. So they started off the game strong. They were moving people in the trenches, but then it just kind of fell off because Dion Lewis isn't a power runner. He like I said, he's a receiving back, so you can't expect him to be replicating Saquon Barkley's production on the ground. Now Devonta Freeman can, help in that facet. Wayne Gallman is decent. He can actually break some tackles. He can make some people miss. I think that they're going to try to establish things, but again, with Sterling Shepard out now, the guy, like, really, of all things injured, it's freaking toe. Like, the guy can't catch a break. It's like literally head to toe injuries. So I hate myself for that one, but I had to say it. The offense is really struggling to maintain that health. And why is this always a problem for us, Anthony? Why is it that every year we have to talk about the same players getting injured? And now, we're right back to square one with Shep. And Daniel Jones can't have one game without all of his weapons healthy. Like, every time it happens, bam, gone immediately. Like, it's really just getting on my nerves. And I'm starting to think this is just something going on with the conditioning. Obviously, the COVID-19 issue and everything, prevented the preseason. How do you see that affecting? Like, do you think that's played a big part in this and just kind of players getting injured across the league?
Well, I think a lot of it is just bad luck. I mean, Daniel Jones, like you said, hasn't gotten to play with all of his playmakers yet, which is really unfortunate. Maybe we're cursed. Maybe we've been cursed since the boat trip. I don't know. But really what I think it is, I think you touched on it there. I don't think it was having no preseason because if you look at, Sterling Shepard, he wasn't going to play much in the preseason anyway, maybe not even play at all. Saquon was probably going to take one drive. But I think what it was is not having mini camp and OTAs before training camp. They all rushed right into training camp and had to try to condition much faster and get their bodies into football shape. And I think that's why in week 2 we saw so many stars really around the league, not just the Giants, go down with injury. One thing that I noticed is that there were no rookies who went down in week 2. None of these rookies tore their knees or, went down with injuries. It was all second, third, and fourth year players or even older. And what I think that is because the rookies aren't used to having OTAs and mini camps. They're not used to getting conditioned at that time. So all they know is getting conditioned at training camp and then going into the season. But the veterans, they're used to their body getting conditioned earlier in the summer in OTAs and mini camps. So I think that their bodies were on a different schedule and they weren't ready come week 2 to be fully in game shape and conditioned for that. That's what I think.
That's a really good point that I didn't think about. And the rookies, they play longer, right? Because they have to stay in shape. They have to get ready for the draft. They have the NFL draft combine. They're training up all the way up until the end of April. So that's a pretty good point that you brought up that I never thought about. That's a good point.
Yeah, and looking at Andrew Thomas on the offensive line, I think that getting the Giants have been trying to play more up tempo. We've seen it early on in games. Like in week 1 against the Steelers, we saw them come out of the gate, running plays very, very quickly, trying to catch them off guard, keep the defense kind of on edge. That hurts your team too, and the defense as well. They were trying to, put a lot of pressure early on. And we saw this in the first 2 weeks of the season. The defense and offense looked gassed by the second half. And that was a major concern for me. And oddly enough, the defense responded a lot better against the Bears. So in the first half of the game, they let up 17 points, and then they blanked them in the second half. James Bradbury obviously being a major factor. Love that guy. One of the best signings that we've had in years. And that's kind of what I like to see from that unit specifically, right? The defense has played above their weight class. There's no doubt about it. The offense has played under their weight class, and I think that it's only about time until they get used to Jason Garrett's system. There's a lot of plays that look telegraphed to me. Like, there's a lot of running plays that you can tell, like, they're playing jumbo sets. They're with 3 tight ends on the field. They're running the football. There needs to be more screen passes, needs to be more play action, more creativity. I just don't think they know the playbook well enough yet. That's my big concern. I just don't think the Giants have the continuity. They don't know the playbook. Like you said, Anthony, they missed a lot of time that they could have been learning the playbook in person through OTAs, minicamp, all of these different things. They just didn't have it. So I think teams that have had more experience with each other are actually the ones that are benefiting this year. And obviously the newer teams like the Giants, who are learning new playbooks on both sides of the ball, are going to struggle over a longer period of time. I think like week 8 to 10, we're going to finally see these units start to click better. I'm really, really surprised and excited about the defense looking this good this early. Anthony, do you think that this defense is only going to improve, or do you think that maybe they'll take a step back? Against the 49ers this week, they have Nick Mullins at quarterback, who the Giants beat a few years ago, 27-23, I believe. But he threw 2 interceptions that game. What do you think this is going to be for Nick Mullins? How do you stop him? And what is the defense looking to do here?
Well, I think the defense should definitely put up a solid outing versus Nick Mullins. Like, that should be a given. He's like, what, a 6th, 7th round pick or an undrafted? He's a backup quarterback. The defense should continue to play well. For the rest of the season, though, I don't know how sustainable it is to, have shutouts in the second half. Like, that was a really impressive performance from the Giants defense, and they really have been impressive through these first 2 weeks. And I think, like I said, that will continue against a banged up 49ers team with a backup quarterback. That should continue. James Bradberry, like you mentioned, he's been playing great. Blake Martinez has looked really good. I think Blake Martinez is the second highest graded linebacker in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus.
Insane.
So, and James Bradberry is pretty high up there as well. So, it's been very impressive on the defensive side of the ball. Dexter Lawrence seems like he's really emerging as like an all-pro caliber defensive tackle. So that's also exciting. But I also want to quickly touch on the offense. You mentioned like the lack of creativity. The Giants are one of the worst teams in pre-snap motion usage. I know months ago on this podcast, I talked about that. I was like, pre-snap motion needs to be utilized more. Pat Shermer never utilized it. He used it on like 5% of snaps. Yeah, and you look at the Chiefs, you look at the Ravens, you look at the 49ers. They all have a dominant running game. They all use a ton of pre-snap motion. The Giants, their running game really struggled last year. Let's be honest. There were games, Saquon Barkley had a 13-rush, 1-yard performance against the Jets. They didn't use any pre-snap motion in that game. Then against Miami, when Barkley had like 150 yards, they used pre-snap motion on like 30% of the snaps. There was clear correlation, and correlation doesn't always lead to causation, but there was correlation at least. And through 2 weeks, we have struggled to run the ball, and we barely used pre-snap motion. And I really do think that is one of the main contributing factors to the slow running game. I think it is very vanilla on offense, and Jason Garrett needs to do a better job misdirecting the defense and using some more creative play calls.
That's a great point. And the team they're going up against, like you just said, is the opposite of that. I just did my preview video now. The Niners had pre-snap motion last year on 79% of their plays. They used their fullback more than anybody else in the league. I think it was almost 40% of the time they had Kyle Juszczyk out there. The Giants, by comparison, last year used their fullback 11% of the time. So I agree with you on that. I think we do need more pre-snap motion. In terms of the defense, to me, as far as the defense goes, I've been really impressed with the defense so far this year. It's definitely exceeded my expectations. The one stat that I really wanted to point out about the defense, I think it has more to do with the minds on the defense, the coaching staff. I think they've gotten a lot out of these players. The players are definitely developing. Like you said, Dexter Lawrence looks better. Leonard Williams has more familiarity with the defense. Lorenzo Carter looks a lot better. I always thought he fit this scheme better than the previous scheme, just because of his versatility and things like that. And adding Bradberry and Martinez certainly helps. But when you look at what the New York Giants are doing in comparison to last year the Giants were blitzing almost 30% of the time overall, and they were still, I think they were 22nd or 23rd in sacks. Right now they're tied for 5th in sacks, and they're only blitzing 12% of the time. So a lot of these sacks are coverage sacks. They're not sending the house. They're sending the house almost a third of the amount of times, yet generating more sacks. Right now they're on pace to have 48 sacks this year in comparison to 36 last year. So there's better coverage. They're not sending the house, and I expect them to blitz more as the season goes along, but right now they can't trust that second cornerback. Corey Ballantyne's not good, so I think they're trying to help out Yiadam, whoever's out there, to the best of their ability. But so far, the defense has been great. Do I think it's sustainable? Probably not. I don't think they have the horses on this defense to be a top 7, 8, 9, 10 defense all year. Right now,
top
they're
15, though.
Hopefully top 15, hopefully league. If you would have told me league average at the beginning of the year for the defense, I would have told you we're probably going to be for the playoffs. Now, I thought the offense was going to struggle to start the year for the simple reason, a brand new playbook for everybody on this team. Jones, the offensive line, and you have 3 new starters. I think it takes time for them to get used to playing with one another. So that's why I'm trying not to be too harsh on the offense yet. But you're right. It's very vanilla. There's no plays being drawn up. I'm going to take into account that we went up against two great defenses, and they felt like they probably didn't have a lot of time to pass protect and things like that. But yeah, the playbook has been very vanilla. They have to start to open it up a lot more. Yeah, I can't say I've been happy with the offense overall. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has, like I said, really, really surprised me. And, I have a question for you in terms of just Dave Gettleman's involvement in all of this, the rebuilding and such, after I get through a few points. But we don't even have Xavier McKinney right now, which is pretty exciting. He's a guy that was going to be starting 90, 100% of the snaps. Now we have Julian Love back there, who hasn't done a poor job. The Giants have done a really, really good job limiting big plays downfield, right? Julian Love has capped the free safety position. He has done a very good job of keeping that, 20 yards from the line of scrimmage, keeping everything between that, right? And I like how the Giants are kind of mitigating those big plays, and really focusing on squeezing the line of scrimmage and the deep secondary, to try and improve in that way. It's really exciting to see how the secondary is improving. And like you mentioned, the cornerback 2 position is a real problem for me. Like Corey Ballantyne and Isaac Yiadom just can't be trusted. And what I did love to see was that the Giants actually addressed that, right? They went out and they said, okay, Corey Ballantyne isn't playing well. We should probably take snaps away from him, theoretically, because in week 1, he got absolutely torched. And then week 2, he got torched by, what's his name? Darnell Mooney. And I didn't even know who that was before. In that play, if you remember that play, Ballantyne is manned up with him one-on-one. Obviously, the pass rush completely fell out of place there. They did not get the job done. But Ballantyne immediately loses, gets completely beat right off the line of scrimmage. And then he's tracking him in the end zone, and he ends up falling. By the time Mooney has the ball in his hands, Ballantyne's the forehead of his helmet, top of his helmet's hitting Mooney in the ankles. Right? Like, that is not, you can't tell me, I don't give a crap about anything aside from, you can't tell me that a cornerback should be, like, any cornerback should be beat that bad, even if it's one-on-one coverage in the end zone and the pass rush didn't do their job. It's basic fundamentals. Just stay high, stay standing at least. He's literally like falling at the ground by the time the ball's getting there. And he just got outmanned, outmuscled. And that basically was a reflection of the Giants decreasing his reps from like upper 90s in week 1 to about 50% with Yiadom in week 2. So we're seeing them make changes, right? We're seeing them actually noticing that Ballantyne is not a starting quality corner, and they're making changes to supplement that. But now my question for you, Chris, is that, do you think that Dave Gettleman had a big say in signing Blake Martinez and James Bradbury? Do you think that Joe Judge and the kind of the new regimen here had more of a say in that? And are you willing to give him, like, Gettleman the credit for signing those guys?
I mean, I'm gonna give Gettleman the credit. Just like everybody gives him the discredit when he misses on guys. I think it was a joint effort. I definitely think that Joe Judge had a lot to do with it. I think you could certainly argue that Bradbury was more Gettleman due to the fact that he drafted him with Carolina. No real connection to Judge there. But yeah, I mean, I would say Martinez and Fackrell, they have an obvious connection there to Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants, who I think Joe Judge had a huge say on coming over here as the defensive coordinator. So if I had to guess, I would say Bradbury was more Gettleman and Martinez was more Judge. But I think it's a collaborative effort. I think they went out there this year. I think they did a great job this offseason. It might not result in a lot of wins, but everything considered, I don't see much you could complain about outside of maybe they should have brought in a wide receiver maybe in the draft. That is definitely something that I think maybe you could criticize them for due to the fact that you should have anticipated these guys are injury plagued, so on and so forth. But I think they built towards the future. That's what I said right after the draft. This draft was not so much about this year. It was more about the next 5 years. Guys like Lemieux, guys like Parrott, those guys are going to really start to contribute, hopefully starting in 2021 or 2022 for Lemieux. And Andrew Thomas obviously is going to be right away, but Darnay Holmes, he's going to get better. It's going to take him some time. He's a 4th-round pick. McKinney, same thing. But overall, I thought they did a great job. They didn't think short term. They thought about building for the future, and they brought in some good veterans on cheap contracts, in terms of years, only 3-year commitments. So I thought they did a really good job this offseason. It's not going to be instant gratification. I know the younger generation wants that right away. It's a microwave generation. They want everything to work right away. That's not the way a rebuild
I love
works.
that.
We're in year 2. It's not the way a rebuild works, and I hate to say that. I would love to cover a team that I could say going into the year, we're going to win 10 games, 11 games, 12 games. We're just not there yet. And people, I think, should have realized that going into the year. With that being said, I want to win this Sunday with everything that's going on with San Francisco.
Agreed. I mean, look, this team has given me hell, and I know it's given Anthony hell the past few years, and Chris. We deserve a win, and I know Joe Judge is dying to get that first W. But with like what you mentioned, this is really the second year of a rebuild, and a lot of people have overlooked that fact. Is that this team was not ready to win. This team is not a winning team yet. They have the pieces in place, but they don't have the experience and the continuity and the chemistry. There's so many other factors that go into winning a football game. And like Joe Judge said, it's a game of inches. Everything is so minor, so detailed, so fundamental. They look at everything. And I think that you really hit it on the head when you said these guys are so young. We're looking at 2021, 2022, when these guys really reach their full potential, and we're like, okay, we can trust Andrew Thomas to be a lockdown left tackle week in and week out. We can trust Shane Lemieux to fill that guard spot after Kevin Zeitler maybe goes. And Shane Lemieux's on a rookie deal. Xavier McKinney's coming back. We can trust him to hold down the fort. And then you have Julian Love as a reserve guy, kind of a utility player that can play multiple positions. Then you still have Bradbury on contract, Blake Martinez. Hopefully we've gotten another solid linebacker by then. And then you have Saquon Barkley back, hopefully. We'll see what happens with his contract and everything. But that's my biggest regret, man, and was not to find a wide receiver in such a very deep wide receiver draft. That was my biggest regret for the Giants, and it still gets to me because now, we let go of Corey Coleman, and that was, I think, might have been a mistake because he knew the playbook. We brought in Damian Ratley, and we have CJ Board. I actually like CJ Board. I saw what he did last week. He looked pretty good.
Been okay.
But yeah, he's gonna get the job done on like an average level. He's not gonna blow you away. He's not gonna underwhelm, but he'll do like his job. But I really miss having like that number one wide receiver. Someone that can really just dominate, like make electric plays happen, put points on the board. Because like Odell, but without the antics and the BS. Like I loved Odell. Don't get me wrong, but I just want someone that's going to come in, grind, and do the job and not bring so much unwanted attention to the team. And because it really hurts the team and it hurts the coaching staff. Like, and the media is a big part of it. We can't leave out how they literally focus on any little thing to destroy OBJ with. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And if we treated OBJ the right way and fueled his success, I think he would have had a totally different experience in New York. Mm-hmm. I think he'd probably still be here.
Maybe you might be right about that. New York's a tough place, man.
It really
New York is a really tough place. You look at Mark Sanchez; he got eaten up alive. You look at Joe Judge, man. Joe Judge didn't even coach a game yet, and people were Let me say this about the Giants too. I should have touched on this. Everybody was critiquing Joe Judge for his elementary coaching techniques with the tennis balls. You know how many defensive penalties the New York Giants have committed through 2 weeks?
Don't tell me.
Zero. Outside of
That's
offside
amazing.
penalties. Zero. There hasn't been a defensive pass interference. There hasn't been a defensive holding. There hasn't been an unnecessary roughness. Tennis balls are working, guys. Let the guy do his job. He's coaching a young team. He's coaching a young team, and it's going to take some time. But so far, you've seen some growth on the defensive end. We want to see some growth on the offensive end, and it's going to happen. I believe in Joe Judge. I think he's going to do a good job. So far, I think he's doing a great job. We may not get a lot of wins, but you should have went into the year expecting that. There were so many factors. The young team, but also factor in the schedule. Factor in the fact that you got a 38-year-old head coach who's never coached before, and factor in that you had no offseason with 2 completely new schemes. Not to mention, you're the guy who's supposed to be your second cornerback, going to be going to jail. Your kicker got kicked off the team. Like, there was so much going on this offseason that people had to come in with more realistic expectations.
100%. And Anthony, I want to ask you about kind of Joe Judge in general. I know you're part of the Joe Judge fan club. You've actually started it.
I'm the leader of it.
I don't know if you've seen Chris. If you don't know Chris, if you've seen this, he has a number 1 Joe Judge actual jersey. It's pretty dope.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, go grab it. Yeah, let me see. Because look, this Joe Judge team, I have complete faith in Joe Judge.
That's awesome.
Let me see. Oh, I see it. That's great. It's not even from like AliExpress or anything. It's like a legit jersey.
Yeah, it cost me a pretty penny. It was worth it though, man. Joe Judge, that's my guy. And I'll say another thing. The tennis balls are definitely working, and I think the laps are working too. We saw this team fight hard in that second half. Like, we thought it was over. Everybody in the first quarter thought this game was over. But we came back and we had a chance to win in the second half. And, if it wasn't for Graham Gano kicking a field goal, or missing that field goal, the 57-yarder, we probably win that game. All we needed was a field goal at the end at that point. But, last year, Pat Shermer, we get down early, we're not coming back. We always knew that we were not coming
You're
back.
done.
That team
You're
would
done.
quit. They would give up. It was over. They had no fight in them. But under Joe Judge, these past 2 weeks, I've seen a lot of fight. And I'm going to give credit to the Laps for that. I think that's been teaching the young players to fight hard and to work through adversity. So I'm going to give Joe Judge all the credit because I'm the leader of the fan club.
There you go.
Yeah, and listen to this. So it takes about 30 days to establish a new routine, a new habit, right? I think that the Giants fighting these past few games is part of like establishing that higher culture of winning and success, because you have to learn how to win. You don't just automatically win games. You don't just walk on a field because you're talented and win games. It doesn't work that way. You have to be playing as a team. A lot of smaller details go into that. And that's why I love Joe Judge so much. I don't blame him for these 2 losses at all. Of course, maybe there were some minor time management things, but again, he's a first-year coach, like you mentioned, Chris. He's going to have his own struggles as well. He's going to be learning on the go. And that's kind of why they brought in guys like Freddie Kitchen and Jason Garrett to help him, learn and adapt to this new platform that he's on. And he's taken a really big jump from special teams coordinator, which not a lot of coaches do, to head coach of a massive organization, one of the most valuable organizations on the planet, and one of the biggest media markets also in the planet, in the universe, as far as we know. So, moving forward, like, we have to expect this team is going to be different. The defense is going to compete. The offense is going to compete. And a lot of people have been putting Daniel Jones down the past week, and really the turnovers have been a major thing. He has 4 turnovers this year. He has a fumble and 3 interceptions, right? Now, that is a major concern for me, a huge one. But let's remember, his interception against the Chicago Bears was not his fault. It was Evan Ingram's fault. Evan Ingram literally slips at the end of his route, and the cornerback is standing there, and he throws it right to him because Evan Ingram slips. And obviously, Ingram has had the worst luck in the world, so he probably slipped on a straw of grass, and his toe breaks too. So that's kind of the whole thing. Exactly. And they were playing on sod, which is the best part of it. So I'm a little concerned about Evan Ingram at this point, but Danny Dimes is a guy that I'm not too worried about. He might have some turnover issues, but he's behind a really shaky offensive line right now. His weapons are getting injured left and right. What do you look at him, Chris? Like, how are you looking at DJ right now and seeing him and his long-term growth? Do you still think he's the guy, and what do you think he needs to improve?
Listen, I can't stand this tank for Trevor movement. I've been very outspoken about it on my channel. I've been very outspoken about it on Twitter. And I'm not going to be a guy who's going to come out and say that he's the second. He's going to be Eli Manning. I'm not going to do that. I've tried to be patient in my approach. I'm not 100% sold on him. I'm definitely more leaning that I'm sold on him than I'm not. And I definitely think he needs the year before we even start to critique whether or not he is that guy, or whether we come to a conclusion of whether or not he is that guy. And people look at the turnovers. Listen, he went up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, since they got Minkah Fitzpatrick last year, in the 14 games that Fitzpatrick played there, they gave up 17 passing touchdowns in 14 games and 20 interceptions. Daniel Jones had the second most passing touchdowns since that defense has been fully established in a single game ever in those 15 games, and the second most yardage. He threw for 279 yards against that defense. I think they only had 4 quarterbacks that threw for over 200 yards against them last year. That's made crazy. Daniel Jones throw 41 times against that defense, and they couldn't run the ball at all. And he was near flawless outside of the 2 mistakes. Now, the Watt interception, I thought was a lot more.
That was a great play.
It was a great play.
It was a great play.
The guy's probably the best defensive player in football. They get paid to make plays too. And in terms of the second one, Daniel Jones has to throw that out of bounds, but Dupree makes a great play. He tipped the ball. It is what it is. Things like that happen.
It is.
The guy's jersey I'm wearing, that happened every week. But you know what?
The guy
won a Super Bowls, and the guy made plays when they had to be made. And I'd rather have a quarterback that's not scared to take the shots. And that's what I like about Daniel Jones. And so far, I'm gonna be honest. I don't live and die by PFF, and PFF usually hates Daniel Jones. But I just saw PFF came out with a list. They rank him the 10th best quarterback overall. They've said that he's cut down on his turnover-prone plays from 5.5% last year to 2% this year. So he's almost cut it in over 200%. Yeah. So there's been a monumental leap when you factor in the defense he's gone up against, the fact that he's playing in a completely new scheme with an offensive line that can't block. They haven't been able to run. I'm impressed with Jones. The stats may not indicate it if you're somebody that just looks at the box score, but if you watch the guy play, the guy gave us 2 drives of over 95 yards. Against great defenses. When's the last time Eli Manning, and I love Eli, when's the last time we saw that as Giants fans? He's giving you 2 in 2 weeks. I've been impressed with Jones. The tank for Trevor movement, I'm sick of it. If anything, I hope that he's the guy. And if we get the first pick, we trade down and we get a ton of assets to help out the quarterback that we have now. Because if you use that pick to bring in another quarterback, he's going to have the same problems Jones has. You're going to still have a banged-up Saquon. He's probably not going to be 100%. You're going to have an offensive line that probably isn't fully developed yet, and you're still going to have mediocre wide receivers. So I just don't see it. It's been the same problem here for 8 years. Eli Manning fell off a cliff after he won the Super Bowl. It wasn't because he lost talent. It's because we couldn't block, and our receivers went down. Victor Cruz got hurt, so on and so forth. So I just think people need to be a lot more patient with this kid. Eli Manning at this point in his career wasn't nearly as good as what Daniel Jones is now. Look at the supporting cast that Eli Manning had. The guy had all-pro linemen. He had O'Hara, he had Deal, he had all these guys. He had Tom Coughlin, a Hall of Fame coach. And you're going to get on this guy, 14 career starts? It's ridiculous. I can't stand the fans that are saying thank for Trevor. I can't stand it.
Dude, thank you. I agree completely with everything. I mean, the tank for Trevor movement is ridiculous. He hasn't even played 16 games. That's not even a full season. 14 starts. That's it. And you know what? Like, I'm not one of those guys that looks at those turnovers and is concerned by them. I'm not concerned at all because if you actually watch those plays, 2 of them, yeah, they were his fault. The fumble against the Bears, he held on to the ball too long. The interception on the 1-yard line against the Steelers, that was his fault. He should have taken a sack or thrown the ball away. But the other 2, like you mentioned, Evan Engram slipped, and the other one was just an amazing play by TJ Watt. Like, you can't fault Daniel Jones for that. So he's had 2 turnover-worthy plays in 2 games. So sure, would I like him to cut that down to less than, 1 turnover per game? Yeah, obviously we all would, but he's a rookie quarterback. He's not a rookie, but he's a young quarterback who hasn't even played 60 games.
When you factor in he's learning a new scheme, he's a rookie.
Basically, he's basically a rookie. And the blame that I put on these first 2 games is mainly all on Jason Garrett for basically what I mentioned earlier, the vanilla offense, the poor rushing attack, the poor passing attack too, because, and here's another thing, I'll throw out these statistics that I got from Next Gen Stats. In week 1, Daniel Jones, when throwing into the middle of the field, was 13 of 15 for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is just elite throwing down the middle of the field. So what did he do in week 2? Did he back that up? Yeah, 15 for 17 for 172 yards and 1 interception. But like we mentioned, that's because Evan Engram slipped coming out of his route. The dude throwing down the middle of the field, Daniel Jones, is unstoppable. Like, he literally has the highest percentage.
Maybe I'm bad at math. Let me see. 28 for 32 overall.
Yep. That's it. 28 for 32. He's thrown 4 incompletions down the middle of the field in 2 games.
That's against the Steelers and the Bears.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and those are teams that have good middle linebackers, Roquan Smith and Devin Bush, very fast middle linebackers covering the middle of the field, and he's been shredding them apart. Minka Fitzpatrick roaming around in the deep middle of the field, he's shredding it apart. It doesn't matter. Exactly. Daniel Jones is a cold-blooded killer when throwing in the middle of the field, and it's time that the fans recognize this and start supporting the guy. He is playing great football. He really is. He's the 10th ranked quarterback in the league according to Pro Football Focus, and he fully deserves that. He's literally had 2 turnovers that were his fault.
About time they gave him
for those. By the way. Exactly. Yeah. About time. They said Will Greer's better than him. There's no way they believe that anymore. The guy's playing great. He actually has the 2nd highest rushing grade out of all quarterbacks because of all those 3rd down rushing, conversions that he's had. The only one who's higher is Kyler Murray because that man is amazing. He'll slide anytime he sees somebody within 10 yards of him. He's got a few rushing touchdowns, but his rushing grade is actually higher than Cam Newton's, Russell Wilson's, because Daniel Jones has been really smart running the football. He hasn't fumbled on a rushing attempt. Week 1 of last year, his first action was when he was playing in relief of Eli Manning. He goes out there, runs for a first down, and fumbles instantly. Daniel Jones has not fumbled on a rushing attempt yet. He did it like 3 times last year. Dude, everyone just needs to be more patient. That's the main thing. Like Chris said, patience. Ever heard of her? That's what I tweeted, and people thought that was whatever. Like, seriously, though, tanking for Trevor Lawrence, it's been 2 games with a brand new head coach. We all said all offseason, we got to be patient with this team. They're going to struggle at first. And now everybody just forgot about that. They're like, no, we have to win now. I agree. Like, week 3 against this 49ers team, we should win this game. We kind of have to. But it's more just to silence the critics. Let's silence all these tank for Trevor guys. That's why we got to win. Daniel Jones just needs to silence them. And I honestly fully believe that he will. This is a really injured defense. Daniel Jones has been playing great football. I do think that the Giants win this game because of Daniel Jones and the way that he's been playing. And I fully believe in the kid. I do think he is the future of this team.
You want to know what I think the most ironic thing about all of this is? And I said it in my video. The same people that are trying to kick Daniel Jones out of here now, because that's what that means, tank for Trevor, are the same people that rushed him in. 2 games into his career, they said, he's got to come in now. He's got to come in. When the rational thinker like myself, I said to myself, we've got
A year on
Eli.
the bench.
Eli could mentor him for at least 8 games, and you guys wanted to rush him in. Then by doing that, he got 12 games of game film, and then he had to adjust to a new scheme, so that added more pressure. Had you waited till week 10, week 11, he only starts 5 or 6 games. Your expectations coming into the year are probably a lot more reasonable. You're probably like, well, he showed a couple of things, but he's got a new scheme. It's almost like he's a rookie. But because you guys wanted to rush him in before he should have played, the guy's coming out of Duke. We had a guy that he could have sat behind for half a season. You wanted to rush him in, and now you want to kick him out. The impatience with this fan base has reached ridiculous levels, and I understand it. We're losing. We haven't been good for quite some time, but you got to be patient. We drafted this kid 6th overall. When you invest in a quarterback like that, you don't just kick him to the curb. Most quarterbacks don't got to learn 2 schemes in 14 games. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, the expectations that this fan base has.
Agreed.
No, you're 100% spot on. I have 2 things to say. One of them is I haven't seen Anthony this amped up in like forever when it comes to Daniel Jones, man. Like it definitely is a sweet spot. And Daniel Jones, the one thing that I love about this year so far is he hasn't shown the same fumbling issues. Like he was averaging over a fumble a game last year, right? He fumbled 18 times. He lost 11 of them. He's fumbled 1 time. If you really want to be a hater and you want to claim that first one against Pittsburgh, a fumble that Nick Gates picked up, it wasn't ruled a fumble on the field. It obviously,
and that was a fumble that anybody would have fumbled. I mean,
exactly.
Watt was there within a second. He dropped back the pass and he knocked the ball out.
Andrew Thomas was at fault there, by the way. I watched that film this morning, and Andrew Thomas got completely rocked on that play. But either way, it wasn't ruled a fumble on the field, so I'm not counting it. And the fumble in the second one against the Bears, that was on him. That was on him, 100% on him. But again, we've seen him like very, very obviously protecting the ball with 2 hands. Like he's learning. You see him, he clutches it with 2 hands and he protects the ball. And that's Joe Judge, by the way. Everything about that is Joe Judge. We saw him during the inter-squad scrimmages after that fumble against Lorenzo Carter. He literally pulls him over to the side and he's like, come on, like, you know what to do. Keep your hands on the ball. Like he's coaching him. I don't remember. And the thing is, Joe Judge does that with every player. I saw him doing it with Devonta Freeman 2 days ago.
Yeah.
You know, he was teaching him how to hold the ball. The guys have been in the league for like 6 years, and he's trying to teach him how to hold the ball better. And you know, that's a real teacher, man. That's a real teacher, and he's treating everybody the same way. I felt as though Shermer had his favorites, and Ben McAdoo had his favorites. And I feel like Joe Judge, like everyone's equal on this team. And the players love that. The players love it when everyone's treated exactly the same, because there's no like, oh, I'm going to suck up to the coach. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You're the same as everybody else. And that's how you build camaraderie. That's how you build a team mentality, something that we have not seen in many years. That's why I really, truly believe that Judge is a far different coach than any of the other ones that we've had. And it really just comes down to inexperience and not knowing the playbook and then not knowing the scheme. But Anthony, like, I'm really thinking about it now in the vanilla offense you're talking about, and I really see what you're talking about right now, because you watch the Chiefs play, you watch some of these better offenses, and they do things. They move players around, the pre-snap motions, the screen plays, factoring in their tight ends. Evan Engram has not been utilized correctly. Can I just get that out of the way right now?
I agree with that.
Evan Engram has been like, they're just running streaks and hooks to the middle of the field. I'm like, you got to get Engram in the activated in the screen game. You can't have him blocking on the interior against TJ Watt in week 1. Absolute nonsense. Like, whoever came up with that play design, like, throw that out the window right now, because he needs to be chipping and running. He cannot be relied on to be a significant blocker. And can we please see Caden Smith more? That guy is a good player. Why have we not? And he's a good blocker too. Why the hell haven't we seen him more?
The one thing I noticed that they did with Caden Smith in the second game, they used him in the fullback role a little bit, or the H-back role. They brought him in on running plays to help be the lead blocker, at least on a few plays. I'd like to see that more. He's a good blocker. But, yeah, overall, I agree with you. I don't think Evan Engram has been utilized properly. And I think with Shepard out, I think they're going to move Engram more to the outside. I do, because I would
like to see that.
I don't think there's a lot of trustworthy wide receivers on this team. Maybe you move Tate to the slot. Maybe you move Engram outside more. I could see that. I definitely could see that this week.
It's about time they move him outside. I mean, fans have been calling for that. And, you know, I've always been against converting him to a wide receiver, because I do think that he's a solid tight end if you know how to use him. But it's about time we see him on the outside, you know, with all these injuries. Like, let's see him do it. Let's see what he can do. Maybe he can be a receiver. But I'll say there's like one play that sticks to mind where I was like, yeah, okay, they utilized Engram right on that play. And it was that shot down the seam where he pushed off. He made an incredible catch, but he pushed off.
That was a weak call.
And it's like, yeah, but that was what I wanted to see. Let's see him go down the seam and get some shots, but he really hasn't done that. He's been doing like hooks and curls and flat
Check
routes.
down.
Like,
He's been a check down.
Just
he's
check
been
down
a check
option,
down monster. That's what Caden Smith is there for. He's supposed to be the security blanket because he's got reliable hands and he can block, so he can chip and then go into the flat. That's not Evan Engram's game. Evan Engram, you got to use like, you got to just get him out in space,
routes.
get him crossing routes. Yeah, crossing routes because that's what he scored on. And when Daniel Jones threw his first touchdown pass, it was a crossing route, and Jones hit him, took off 75 yards. Put him on those routes, man. Let's get him out in space, get him on some faster routes, not just use him as a security blanket. Use Caden Smith in that role. I mean, we've run a lot of 13 personnel with 3 tight ends, in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. Let's start using the other tight ends. Yeah, I know. But let's start using the other tight ends as a security blanket and start getting Evan Engram to be this versatile weapon that we all want him to be. Darren Waller of the Raiders is exactly what we all thought Evan Engram was going to be. That's how
he just drops the ball, though. Like, Engram just drops the ball. That's why I'm kind of getting pissed off, though, because he drops easy catches, and then you're like, you can't throw to him anymore. Or you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't work sometimes. Like, Darren Waller is a different beast. He's big. He's strong. I think he's completely composed as a different player. He can block well. But Engram, I just don't completely trust. Everybody knows what he's going to do, right? Everybody knows he's going to be a receiver. And if he's blocking, they're like, thank you. They're like, thanking the fucking Giants.
He's a liability. I compared it to, I was talking to on my live stream. He's kind of like a shortstop that is a very good hitter that can't field in baseball. He's a liability in the field.
He's like Gleyber Torres.
You know he's going to make 20 errors, but he's going to hit you 30 home runs. That's basically what Evan Engram is for the New York Giants, because he is a liability when it comes to blocking.
Yeah, and I do think he's somewhat of a liability in catching as well. And my thing with Evan Engram is when you watch like a normal NFL receiver catch a ball, it's like a fluid motion to meet the ball where it is and secure it. Like but with Engram, I always notice he's like this, and he claps at the ball, and he completely like smacks it together in his hands and drops it. And it's like, no wonder, like, who taught this man to catch a football and who has not corrected this error? Like, this is elementary in football. You were taught how to catch a football. This is not how you catch a football. You do not like clap at the ball. You keep your hands in a certain like football shape so that it just easily fits in there. That's what when you see, Evan Engram, Golden Tate, they'll go over there. They've got their hands like this. Okay, good one. But just Evan Engram, like, it's time. I don't know if it's a Freddie Kitchens or Jason Garrett, whoever's job that is. Let's teach this man the proper form for catching a football, and then we can really see him start to break out.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. I mean, look, Evan Engram, we know he has the talent. We know he has the talent. And all they do is talk good things about this guy. He looks great in practice. He goes at 100%. He's all in. But then game day shows up and he disappears. Now, is that scheming? Is that just him not, the jitters or whatnot? But I just think it's other teams knowing exactly what he's going to do. Everybody knows that he's a receiver first and he's not a good blocker. And if he's blocking, they don't even need to worry about him because they're going to beat him with their pass rushers. And if he's receiving, they just man him up against their best covered linebacker or safety. So that's kind of the issue. Again, they played against 2 phenomenal defenses the last 2 weeks with the Bears and the Steelers. I think he's had some bad luck. It's going to take some time. He hasn't played before this season since week 8 or week 9 of last year against the Pats. Yeah. And now suddenly you're expecting him to come back after offseason in surgery with no OTAs, no mini camp, no preseason games to get back into shape and just jump right into it as a premier playmaker. That's where I'm giving him the slack. That's where he deserves slack. Like, just a few games to get back into the action. This 49ers game is the perfect matchup for him to completely blow up and explode and really get out of this funk and show us what he's capable of. I think he's going to take a big step forward. Like we saw when he was a rookie and OBJ went down for the final 4 weeks of the year, his production doubled. Completely doubled. They can focus. They can really prioritize him and get him the ball, force him the ball, get him into space. It's all about schematics, really. And I think Jason Garrett's done a poor job of that so far. But again, a lot of it comes down to him. He dropped that pass against the Steelers. I mean, he just looked like a complete liability in week 1. Week 2 was a little better. I wouldn't even say it was worth talking about. But I think this is the week where we see him really take that step forward.
Which is ironic because Jason Garrett is known for the tight end. It's what we all expect.
What angers me. Ugh.
Yeah. It's what we all expected. Witten's got 4 1,000-yard seasons in his career, and all of them came under when Garrett was calling the plays. So I thought for sure that Engram was going to be, and he still might. I still think he's going to be. I still think he's going to have a good year for the Giants. But I think the offense is going to – it might take a few more weeks. Now, maybe we could beat up on this team because they got to beat up defense. I really think we're going to have to wait until the last 9 games probably. I think by this 6, 7 games in is when you're going to really start to really get a full evaluation on the offense. I think that's when you'll start to see the offensive line play up to what we think they can this year, and that'll help the rest of the offense. I still think we're going to have a decent offense, but I think it's going to be the second half of the year.
Yeah, the pitchforks will be out by then, though, so hopefully it happens a little sooner.
Well, yeah, the pitchforks are already out. The pitchforks were out before the year started. It's ridiculous with the and I get some of the hate on Gettleman. That I get, but the Daniel Jones stuff is like, come on, guys.
It's not warranted.
I have people on Twitter who are responding to my tweet saying they should fire Joe Judge. I'm like, what? It's been 2 weeks.
Really?
There's this one specific guy, I don't even remember his name, but this one specific guy keeps coming into my mentions saying fire. No, it's not him. But this one specific guy keeps coming to my mentions and saying fire Joe Judge, get rid of Daniel Jones, get Trevor Lawrence, and he's not even trolling. He's a very strange individual, and we don't do that over on my Twitter space, okay? We are the Joe Judge fan club. If you don't support Joe Judge, then do not follow me.
Neutral ground is Anthony.
I think what a lot of these reactionary fans don't think about, and I get why they're upset, but if you just start firing and firing and firing, who's going to want to take the position? You know, it's like when you're looking to buy a house. If the report says that the people treated the house like crap before, why are you going to want to then jump in and purchase that house? It's the same thing. What head coach is going to want to come here when he looks at it? Yeah, let's fire Joe Judge after 1 year. Okay. Oh, and what they do before that? Oh, they fired McAdoo after 2. They fired Shermer after 2. They didn't give these guys a fair opportunity. No, they're not going to fire Judge. But when the people have the quick trigger finger, who do you think you're going to attract here in terms of GMs and in terms of head coaches? You need sustainability. The best organizations have it.
And on top of that, continuity is important. Just carrying over the same staff and the same personnel year to year. The biggest problem with the Giants offensive line right now is actually the lack of continuity. I don't even think it's a lack of talent. I think Andrew Thomas is talented. I think Nick Gates is talented, but he's never played the position. You know, Kevin Zeitler took him 1 game. Week 1, he struggled. Week 2, he was back into it. He played a great game. Will Hernandez has been struggling, but he's playing with a new center and a new left tackle next to him. I mean, Zeitler's been in the league forever, so he's a rock. You know, he's going to step in and get it together, and he'll be good no matter what. But Hernandez has had 0 continuity along the offensive line throughout his career. Nick Gates is playing a new position. It's a rookie left tackle, and it's a new right tackle as well. Continuity is very important on the offensive line, and the Giants have had none of that heading into this season. I think we have 2 starters at the same positions, and everybody around them is different. So I'm not surprised that the offensive line is struggling. I think by week 8, if fans can be patient enough to wait that long, by week 8, we'll see some pretty solid improvement in this offensive line. I think over the second half of the season, we'll be able to call this offensive line like at least decent and maybe even good by the end of it.
It's kind of like 2018, where it took half a season for that offensive line to really show huge improvements over the second half when we went 4-4.
He gets it.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up here, I have two questions. The first is, do you guys think that Matt Parrott will be a starter this year at right tackle? I think, honestly, in my opinion, I want to give him as much time as possible. I think giving him maybe the last 2 or 3 games of the season, if the record indicates that we're obviously mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, getting him some good film, good experience out there at right tackle, and having Cam Fleming just kind of sit back and just act as like a reserve, just fill in if need be. I think that would be beneficial for him, but I don't see him, claiming that starting right tackle job. Do you guys see it differently?
I do. I do. I think Fleming is bad, and I don't think it's going to be like next week, but I think it'll be before the final 3 games of the year. I think you'll see. I think you'll see Parrott in there by maybe week 7, week 8. I think he's going to get an opportunity.
I don't mind that. I don't mind it.
Honestly. And I don't want to rush him in. You got to make sure he's ready. But if Fleming doesn't improve, the way I look at it as a Giants fan, or if I was the coach, would be, well, Parrott's not going to be much worse. I mean, at least we could get this guy some experience, and maybe it'll be a huge improvement. So we'll see what Fleming does. We'll see, we'll see if he gets better over the course of the weeks. But if he doesn't, I think you'll see Parrott in there sooner than later.
Yeah, personally, it's a little weird because I am the big Matt Parrott guy. He was my number 1 target in that 3rd round, and I was so happy when we drafted him. But I kind of hope to not see him play this season, in all honesty. After the week 1 matchup, Cameron Fleming struggled going up against TJ Watt. Duh. And then
Yeah.
in week 2, everybody's like, put in Matt
Mac.
Parrott. I'm like, yeah, let's line up Matt Parrott from UConn, the 99th overall pick in the draft, up against Khalil Mack.
What does this
Great
sound a lot
idea,
like?
fan base.
What does this sound a lot like? Oh, Daniel Jones last year when the fans wanted to rush him.
Exactly.
He was coming from Duke. Yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
He was a scrawny Daniel
Have some
Jones then.
patience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now he's big muscle man Daniel Jones. He's ripped now. But dude, we got to be patient with Matt Parrott. I don't think he starts the season unless Cameron Fleming gets hurt. Because I honestly think Cameron Fleming struggled against 2 of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Otherwise, he hasn't played that poorly. Like, he's held his own on some reps. It's not like it's every single play he's getting torn to shreds. He's held his own here and there, but he struggled here and there, and that's what I expected from him. He's, stopgap right tackle. It is what
He's
it
like
is.
a Remmers. He's like Remmers from last year.
He's like a Remmers.
Exactly.
It's just my issue is that we need to stop getting Remmers. We need to stop getting Fleming, and we need to start getting – and who was the other one? Ben Jones. We got to stop getting these guys every year. Eventually, we have to find our right tackle. I think that's Matt Parrott, and I want to believe that that's Matt Parrott. But I don't want to throw Matt Parrott in against an all-pro edge rusher and get his confidence torn to shreds just because the fan base is a little impatient. I think that they should wait on it. And, maybe by the end of the season, like you mentioned, mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, put him in. Yeah, duh. And if Fleming just starts playing way, way worse, put him in. Because like Chris said, it can't get much worse than that. So let's see if he can get better. So then I want to see Parrott. But my mindset right now is, let's leave Parrott on the sideline as long as possible just so we know he's ready before we put him in there against really good competition, tear his confidence to shreds, and then he's just like never going to turn into what we know he could be.
Yeah, and the first 6 weeks we're going up against some ridiculous pass rushers.
Exactly.
So definitely the first half, I agree with you for sure. At least the first 7-8 games, I don't want to see Parrott at bare minimum.
Yep, I would agree with that. I think that we'll probably see him a little sooner rather than we'd hope. But at the same time, like we've all been mentioning, this is a rebuild year. We want to see this team progress. We want to see them develop. And that's ultimately the goal. Now, Chris, I'll have you start first with this one. What's your prediction for the score for week 3?
I think the Giants are going to win. I did, and I made my prediction before Kittle. I thought Kittle was going to play in my prediction video. I had the Giants win in 2017. Yeah, I had the Giants win in 2017. I'm still going to have it around the same score. I still respect the 49ers offensive mind there with Shanahan. I think they're going to find a way to move the ball fairly effectively on the ground, like Anthony was mentioning with the pre-snap motion. I think they will set up opportunities for the running back. It's not like McKinnon is not a good running back. He's still a solid running back. But I do think the Giants defense will play pretty well. And I do think Daniel Jones will have a pretty clean pocket throughout the game. And I think if you give him a clean pocket, he's going to score you a couple of touchdowns. I think we control the clock. And I think the Giants are going to get a win. I got them by about a field goal.
Yep, I got 24-17. I think we win by a touchdown. I think Gano hits a field goal at some point. I do think the defense continues to play well, holds the San Francisco offense to 2 touchdowns or less, honestly. I think that that's definitely a capable, goal for this defense. And then I do think the offense starts to get it together a little bit more. I do think they finally crack 20 points. I think they get 3 touchdowns on the board. Like Daniel Jones has 2 of them, and a running back gets the other. I think we run one in. So that's my prediction. I think we can win this game, and I think it's all going to be about Daniel Jones.
Pretty solid. I'm going to go with the Giants win 24-10. And the reason I have the 49ers scoring so low is because Nick Mullins hasn't played a snap in the NFL since 2018. And when you haven't played for that long, expecting someone to come in and perform, especially like you mentioned, 6th or 7th round pick, the guy, you can't trust him. You really can't trust him to be a serviceable quarterback in the NFL. And I think the Giants, with their defensive line playing well, the pass rush has been pretty decent. And the defense is upgraded entirely compared to 2018 when they last played him. I think they're really going to pull up. They're going to really shut him down. They're going to put pressure on him. They're going to be creative, and their game stamina, their game conditioning is getting better and better each week. They're going to really just pour on the pressure, and he's going to get freaked out. And hopefully, with George Kittle out now, he has no choice but to force the ball to Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Is he even in? Is Samuel even playing?
I'm not sure on Deebo. I'm not sure on Deebo.
I think he got hurt. Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I think he got hurt. But also, I want to throw that out there since you mentioned that. When Nick Mullins played in 2018 was when we saw the emergence of George Kittle, because Mullins he was literally just throwing the ball to Kittle every single play against the Giants in particular. So that's a huge loss for Mullins specifically that could really make this offense struggle a lot this week.
Kittle had 1,300 yards with Mullins playing for half the games that year. So
that's crazy.
That's a really good call there. And yeah, that was going to be a safety valve. That was going to be the guy that he was going to target a lot. Mm-hmm. And I agree. That's definitely a huge dent in the 49ers offense. I'm just trying to be. In my head, I'm like, we could potentially blow them
cautious.
out. But I'm kind of like, all right, I'll have them by a field goal until such time they start to prove it. But the other thing I'll say, you look at the division this week. Cowboys are going to lose. They're not winning in Seattle, in my opinion. I think they're going to lose.
Yeah.
I think Washington's going to lose. I forgot who they're playing. Oh, they're playing a good team. I don't remember who it is, but I think they're going to lose. And I think the Eagles will win. But if the Giants win, all 4 teams are going to be 1-2. And then all Giants fans will start to be like, well, all right, maybe it's not as bad as
maybe there's a chance.
and that's what's so funny about football. All it takes is 1 week, and all these tank people will be back in the saddle. The Rams game will not be easy, obviously, but we'll worry about that when we get there. Let's get a win this week, and then we'll worry about the Rams.
Washington is playing Cleveland, so could go either way, in my opinion. Could go either way. But you know what? Like you mentioned, we could all be 1-2 by the end of this week. But, man, I don't want to be the only team that's 0-3. That is going to be some dark times. Giants, must-win game. I'm going to keep saying that. It's a must-win this week.
I agree with you. If we lose this game, we're going right to bazookas. Screw those pitchforks.
You know what was funny? I did a video like 3 months ago on Colin Cowherd. And Colin Cowherd 3 months ago said that Daniel Jones was better than his rookie statistics indicated. Like, he was that impressed with him. Then he comes out 3 days ago and he says that the New York Giants need to tank for Trevor Lawrence 2 games into the season. That's what I laugh about. But stuff like that is what fans hear, and they feed into it.
They believe it. They believe that crap.
Yeah. You got to be patient here. You got to give – I'm praying that Daniel Jones shuts these fans up this week, and then they say, okay, maybe we were wrong. Maybe we judged them too quickly. And then we get the ball rolling, and then who knows? Maybe we beat Dallas. Who knows? Let's win this game. We'll worry about week 4.
We're beating Dallas. Exactly. You can never undervalue the momentum of positivity and like actually winning a game, like knowing what it feels like to win a game under your new management. That value is a lot more than you think. And I think, the Giants just really need to get that first win under their belt. They really need to just crack it right there. But that concludes Fireside Giants with Chris the Entertainah talking sports. I love doing that every time I hear it. I really appreciate it, Chris, for you coming on and talking Giants with us. We hope to do it more regularly. And, it was really awesome to have you back. Love your energy and all the stuff that you do for the Giants community. So thank you. And I'll let you get the last word.
No, thank you guys for having me on. You guys are great. Always love talking to you guys, too. Educated, passionate Giants fans. It's great to have a conversation with Giants fans. It's what I'm all about on my channel. So anytime you guys want to have me on, maybe I'll have you guys on soon, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, I'm always down, man. And let's get a freaking win, man. Let's get a freaking win this week. We need one. We need one, man. I agree. Must win. I just said it. Must win. We need a win this week. Daniel Jones needs
must win.
Daniel Jones
must win.
Daniel Jones.
Exactly. All right, fellas. We'll catch you guys later. I hope you enjoyed the podcast and have an awesome day.